Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. And today I am reviewing Beyond the Void, the 6th studio album from Jo Capitalicid's, though now Joe Steele, I Swore. So, this was released, of course, through Fighter Records on May 26th of this year, and again, it is his third album to be released through Fighter Records. Alright, so, and I've already reviewed the previous album on this channel, so I don't really need to go into any of other detail, because I already did that already in my review for Sacred Land. So, without further ado, let me get into my overall thoughts on Beyond the Void from I Swore. Let's get into it. Okay, before I really get into any of my thoughts on this album, I have to do a track listing rundown so I can tell you folks where the songs are on this album, how many songs are on this album, and what's the time length for this album. Since we have at least about 10 songs here, it all clocks in at the length of 35 minutes and 35 seconds. So these 10 songs are, I think it's Unseated, Unconquered, the title track, One Chance, Night Wings, The Strike, Hungry and Cold, Unmarked Grave, Murderer, No Future, and finally ending with Farewell. So there's your 10 songs. Now, if you're at least somewhat familiar with this, at least Jo Capitalicide and I Swore, and of course some of the other albums, and let's say even if you're familiar with my review for Sacred Land, you know that Sacred Land was pretty much, I guess, a more doomier album for I Swore in general. It had more Candlemass and, of course, at times slight Black Sabbath or Trouble or whatever, those kind of bands. It was more leaning towards that than less of the more primitive, more straightforward, traditional, galloping speed metal, or at times even just straight up thrashier kind of speed metals. It was a lot more different compared, and I guess it was not all that well liked. Well, here he returns a year later because of Sacred Land was originally released on May 18th of last year, again 2021. So he returns this year with Beyond the Void, and I guess in a way he pretty much just goes straight back to what he was writing previously, though he does seem to, a little bit of that doom metal kind of feel is still kind of felt on this album, and it's definitely heard in a song like Hungry and Cold, which definitely is more like, almost at times feels like a leftover track from Sacred Land. But again, it kind of works in favor of the album because it kind of gives the album a bit more characteristic, I guess you can say. It leaves things more variety, instead of just being completely derivative and just, I guess, samey, whatever. But, I mean, this album does have its fair share of speed metal songs. I mean, the opening song, for one, the title track is kind of close into there, though it almost falls into more of the more galloping, straightforward metal songs. I think The Strike, Murderer, and Farewell, Night Wings, or some of these are definitely more of the heavier, more thrashier kind of speed metal songs. But again, you also at least have some, I guess you can say that it comes close to almost like epic kind of barbaric sounding metal in like Unmarked Grave. There's at least something here that feels a lot more lively, I guess, compared, even though I understood what he wanted to do with like Sacred Land. But this one is like the album that people want to hear from I Swore and Jo Capitalicide than, let's say, albums like Sacred Land. And I guess even there are people that probably do somewhat dig the Candlemass style of epic doom metal. At the same time, some people, I guess, don't want to hear that from I Swore. Or if they do, they didn't think he did a great job with that. Whatever. I thought Sacred Land was a good album, and this one I think is still a fairly good album in its own right, and it's definitely, again, more of the traditional I Swore sounding record, but at the same time, there's at least a little bit of the that writing style of Sacred Land that really kind of is brought into this album. I guess in a way, it kind of altered a little bit of his writing in a way, but I think it really kind of makes things more interesting in my opinion. But still is a very fun album to begin with, and everything's just, I think, solid from beginning to end. There really isn't a bad song on here. Production-wise, sounds almost very similar to some of the previous ones, but still, everything has a nice sort of little oomph to the album, in my opinion. Everything sounds pretty good for what it is. As far as favorite songs, I would say One Chance and Unmarked Grave are the only two songs I really dig off of this one, especially Unmarked Grave. It's a real kind of has a nice catchy feel to it. Same goes for One Chance. These two are two of my absolute favorites off of here, so I'm choosing those as my favorites, and I think, again, it still makes the album a really good listen to begin with, so I really can't say anything else other than it's a solid album, and I think anyone who likes the more traditional sounding albums that Jo Capitalicide has been releasing under the I Swore moniker, I think, would at least meet your expectations. Alright, so I think it's a good album. I'm just going to end it right here. So there it is, folks. There's my overall thoughts on Beyond the Void from I Swore, and my overall rating for this album is a 8.10 out of 10. It's a good album. I really think it's a really good album, and I think they really did a pretty good job. I think he actually did a pretty good job with this one, and it seems to get a lot more favorable reviews than Sacred Land. Either way, I dug these two albums anyways, and I hope all of you too. And if you haven't at least checked out Beyond the Void, I'm going to leave you a link to their Bandcamp, at least his Bandcamp page, where either his or Fighter Records Bandcamp page, where you can at least buy or listen to, this album again, and just support. That's all. Okay, there it is. That's it. Hope all of you enjoyed. This is Heavy Thrash saying I am out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone. Meant to look at the camera.